Hello everyone, I'm Deb Courtney and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be a little bit different than what the other ones have been. I came outside because it's really a beautiful day to talk about and share this journey with you. And it was kind of like this 6 years ago, November 3rd, 2015. And I will explain that to you in a little bit. But I would like to go back first to the early years when my husband first attempted suicide. It was the late to mid-'80s, and the way he did that was he placed his head in a gas fireplace. Of course, that attempt did not take place. He did not talk about that attempt at all with anyone, as far as I know, not even me. He just understood that it was a failed attempt and it was time to go ahead and get on with life and to do what he wanted to do with his life. Well, let's come on down to the summer of 2015. That summer, his doctor gave him the diagnosis that he had bronchogenic carcinoma. He had a very, very hard time breathing. He was a heavy smoker all during his life, which did not help. Anybody that's familiar with people that have COPD understands what I'm talking about. So he attempted a second time with a gun that belonged to me. I have a .45 revolver, and the way he did that was, it was on a Sunday morning, similar to this day, this Sunday. This is a Sunday. And I heard the door slam because I was getting ready to go to church. So I went to investigate what was going on. And I saw that he had went outside and he was headed away from the house. And so I kind of hollered at him. I said, "Hey, what you doing?" I knew the answer to that question. He stopped and he turned and looked around at me with the saddest eyes, the most painful eyes. Like, I don't think I can handle this anymore. Like, I don't think I can take this anymore, Deb. I told him, I said, "Not today. Sam, it's not going to happen today. I want my gun back." So I got my gun back and I took my gun. I had 2 handguns. He had 2, I think, shotguns. And I placed them in the trunk of my car. And I drove around with those guns in my car probably a month or so. Then one day he suggested to me, he says, "Look," he says, "you work out of town." He says, "I'm here with no kind of protection whatsoever. I want my guns back." Well, I was very hesitant to do that, to give them back to him. I really didn't want to do that because I sensed in my spirit, in my gut, what could take place with them being in his possession. But he kind of really got aggravated and mad with me. He says, "I want my guns back." He says, "They're my guns and I want them and I want you to go get them now." So I did. And you know what? I really didn't think he had the strength enough to even lift the shotguns. I did not give him the 2 handguns. They were my guns. But the shotguns, he was correct. They belonged to him. So I went and got them out of the trunk of my car, and he says, "Just put them in there in the corner of my bedroom." And that's what I did. So on November the 3rd, 2015, I got up and went to work. I had a meeting with the hospice he and I did that afternoon around 3 o'clock. So I was going to get off of work around 2. and then drive home and be there when she got there. You see, the progression of my husband's bronchial issues and breathing issues had increasingly gotten worse. The doctor had prescribed everything that he knew to prescribe Sam as far as breathing treatments. He had even ordered him a vest to put on that was a blow-up vest to kind of shake him, for his lungs to shake the phlegm so he could breathe. And the doctor kind of described it to us as being like trying to breathe through peanut butter. And if anybody has ever taken a spoonful of peanut butter and just with no bread or anything, just eat it right out of the jar, you know how difficult it can be to swallow peanut butter by itself. You really have to work with it and to try to dissolve it some and just swallow it little by little. So he was doing probably about 4 or 5 breathing treatments every day. And so he wasn't getting any relief. As a matter of fact, he was getting worse. He started out with using a cane and as far as getting around. Then he proceeded to use a walker. Anytime we'd go to a store, he would have to get the little motorized scooters to drive around in, to get around in the store. And then, of course, I would take it back for him, and then we'd proceed to go home. He had just a week prior to completing his suicide gotten a wheelchair that had been ordered for him. And then, of course, he knew about the hospice lady coming to visit. So Sam knew the handwriting on the wall. But being the kind of man that he was going to do it his way. As a matter of fact, one of the songs that he wanted me to play at his funeral was the old Frank Sinatra song that Frank cut, I Did It My Way. So I guess you could say now I have the title of a suicide survivor. It's my new normal. And I'm getting better at it. I'm almost 6 years removed at this taping of my husband's suicide. And I think the toughest thing for me in my journey to deal with was not so much Sam's passing away, as that was a really big deal, of course, but it was the way in which he went, the actual violent act of which he went. I really didn't think Sam, like I said previously, I didn't really think he had the strength enough to lift the shotgun to cause him any trouble or harm. Well, he had some help. When I went in and from getting off of work that day, he was not where he usually sat. So I saw a note in the wheelchair. And it looked kind of like a note that someone would leave when they are going to commit suicide. Then I didn't really read all the way through the note, but I noticed Sam and I had a pet, a dog, and I noticed LB real quickly. I noticed her panting real hard. And so I started calling out his name, and I had no answer. I peeked in his room, not there. I looked in my room, not there. He was not in the kitchen dining room at all. So I looked in the bathroom, and there I found him. What he had done, he had taken his walker, and he had propped his shotgun up on his walker and pulled the trigger. He shot himself in the head. When I found Sam, his head was leaning down. When I first glanced at him, his head was leaning down, and I didn't see the side that he blowed off. I saw the side that was still there, and then I noticed the blood on the floor. And then I left. I left the bathroom. I went outside, and I screamed to the top of my lungs. And then I come to myself, oh, I got to go get LB out of the house. So I went back in, I got the dog, and then I went out the back door. First time I went out the front door and just started going like crazy. So I grabbed the phone. And there wasn't a whole lot of time had not lapsed, of course. I got LB outside in the back on the deck. Of course, I grabbed the phone. The first thing I did was I called his two sons and let them know what happened. I called 911 immediately, told them what had happened. While the lady had me on the phone, she said, is there anyone that I can contact for you? And I said, yes, you can contact my son. He works, I told her where he worked at and what department he worked in, and she did that. And she stayed with me on the phone. The only way that I could actually that day process what I had just witnessed was to scream. Now the screams, once I did the screaming, then it helped. And then as time progressed on that evening and the EMS came and the police people came, fire department came, neighbors came, something would come over me and I would scream again. Of course, people were praying with me and praying for me, but it was just the way I had to process what had just taken place. Well, needless to say, I didn't stay at that house for a couple of 2 or 3 nights. I did have family members that was so gracious to come in and other people that they knew to come in and help clean the blood up and to get the house back in order. The blunt force injury and how Sam left this world is what has tormented me the most. That is such a violent act to do to an individual, even to your own self. We think of gun shootings, gun violence, we hear it every day, and we kind of get used to it. We kind of get numb to it, like, okay, like, you know, okay, another gun, another death, another gun violence. But using a firearm with suicide and attempting and completing suicide is kind of different. It's kind of different even with death that comes to people after a long illness and suffering. It's different kind of death for people that die instantly, actually, from a car accident, a truck accident, or something of that nature. Because, I don't know, for me, it's just that intentional. And it's really hard. Well, needless to say, I spent a lot of time in a fog. My brain functioned to a certain degree, but it was like I was kind of numb. You know, half of me is gone. My husband and I were married 30 years, and half of me is gone now. And you have a lot of questions. How do I? How can I? What must I? And on and on and on and on go the questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way people process, and everybody processes suicide differently. This is just my journey. Well, I have this new normal of being a survivor of a suicide loss. Uh, just because you don't see the whole physically in me by the shotgun blast that took my husband out does not mean I'm not bleeding. I can tell you my wound is inside. It's inside of my mind, and it's inside of my soul. I still scream. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I scream internally, not externally. It's my way of processing it. So, my new normal. However, I would like to say that it has gotten better. You know, the first 3 years, for me, the anniversary every month of my husband's suicide, the third day of every month, when it came around, it was like a slap in the face. It was, or a punch in the gut, another shot. And sometimes it would hit my mind, well, you know, next week is the 3rd of the month coming up. And I really grew weary of that. After about 3 years, I really did. And I just told myself, Deb, this has got to stop. This has got to come to a conclusion as far as having the monthly reminders of my husband's suicide. Maybe it took that long. I don't know. Maybe this is just my journey. Everybody's processing is completely and totally different. I want to reiterate that. Everybody's that's left behind that has had to deal with the suicide, loss of a loved one, processes differently. So I knew I had to move forward in my life. I wanted to move forward in my life. And so I thought, well, maybe if I could develop a friendship with someone, that would help. Because I wanted to let you know, I did miss my husband. I missed his arms around me. I missed his kisses, his hugs. I missed all that. And I wanted that back. So I set out for that. And there was some friendships along the way. And that helped me also to process the suicide. Well, it's been 6 years almost, this coming November 3rd, to get me to the place to where I can be here and talk to you in regards to this without crying. You know, I've read and I've heard people talk about when you can talk about suicide without crying, you're healing. And I kind of get that because I kind of feel like that's kind of where I'm at now. I can sit down and discuss this and talk about it and tell my story, tell my journey, and not cry. You don't get over it, but you learn how to get through it. You learn how to put your one foot in front of the other every day. And you learn how to process it every day. Sometimes something will trigger something, a memory, and you just stop, you breathe, you process it, and you keep going. That's kind of my journey. Sometimes when I watch another person tell their story about suicide, especially a child, it does well up in me, emotions of sorrow and grief. You have sorrow, you have grief, you have anger, you have trauma. And the way I handle that is I rush into the arms of love, into the arms of Jesus. I've relied heavily on my faith and the prayers of others to get me through and to help me walk through this journey. You're all the time going through it, walking through it. It may not be prevalent some days as it is other days, and that's okay. This is just me and my journey. So I have moved on to try to begin in rebuilding hope, and I have a lot of hope, and it's my desire and my wish that me sitting down and talking will bring hope to others. God doesn't care how much I beat on him. He doesn't care how much I scream and holler and jump up and down, or however I decide that at that moment in time I need to process this again. He's always there. I struggle in the embrace of that love. The struggle's not prevalent every day. Sometimes it's not prevalent for a long time, but it's still there, and you do learn to deal with it. Sometimes you can't talk to anybody. You know, a lot of times people don't know what to say. It's not that they don't care, they do care, but they just don't know what to say or how to say it. So I give mercy and grace to those people of that nature, because they really, they kind of struggle with it too. I've had family members that probably have had struggle with it on what to say, how to say it, when to say it to me. And sometimes maybe they can't say it, but I understand. I was trying to think if there's anything else that I could share with you. Anybody that has a real issue above and beyond what I have said, there is places that you can go to, that you can reach out and go talk to people. I think every time I talk about it, it helps me to process it and gets me through it a little better and stronger. I have come a long, long way. Believe you me, I have come a long way. And the journey is unique to each and every individual. No two journeys are alike when you deal with the trauma of suicide. Any way you go, however the suicide was completed and taken out. So I just wanted to be helpful to people and to let you know that you can reach out. I know September, we've just just got through September, and that had to do with Suicide Prevention Month. There are all kinds of things that go on all during the year annually that has to do with people to help with processing and dealing with suicide, survivors and or people that are contemplating suicide. I encourage you to please reach out and get whatever help you need. So I'm glad you found me. I'm glad I found you. Thank you for listening. Please leave me a remark, comment below in regards of anything that you think about. I, by all means, did not hit all points and bullets in regards to this topic, Like I said, everybody's unique. But I did want to let you know a little bit more about me and my journey. And I will do other things about me and my journey and what I'm all about in the future videos. I look forward to the future videos coming up. It's going to be some great videos. Go out and make it a great day. Make it a great week. And I will see you again.